Work for Texas lawmakers is far from over this year. They are set to come back to the Capitol next month for a special session. Governor Greg Abbott made that announcement overnight after vetoing 26 bills, including one that would have banned THC here in Texas. Joining us to talk more about the reasons why, as well as the reaction to it, is KXAN's Capitol correspondent Dylan McKim. Dylan, welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Will.
No shortage of news to talk about today, but let's dive in. The governor shared more today about why he vetoed Senate Bill 3.
Yep.
Of course, one of the major priorities for Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. What went into the governor's decision? What did he say about that?
Well, he really broke it down in a 4-page veto proclamation that they post online. Whenever he makes a veto, he has to explain his reasoning. And he really went into depth about this reasoning. And there's a few points that he raised. First of all, were legal challenges that he speculates, he wasn't speculating at all. He was forecasting that this is going to happen, and it already has happened as a lawsuit was filed in Travis County. But he was looking to Arkansas, who passed a similar bill a couple years ago, and that's been tied up in the courts as a legal challenge, and nothing has been done on that end. And Governor Greg Abbott sees this as there is an issue here. He does point out and he does acknowledge that there are products being sold in the state that are making kids sick, that are at a higher concentration of THC that is against federal law. And so he agrees, yes, something needs to be done, but we can't have this bill signed into law, be challenged and be tied up in courts for 2 years while what's happening right now continues to happen. So his call really is to create some kind of regulatory framework, and he kind of mentioned the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission. He says use that same framework they have for alcohol in Texas, and let's just apply it to THC here with these hemp products. And that's his answer, is let's do this as a regulatory framework. They're calling a special session for it, but the lieutenant governor is not for that idea, completely against it. This is what his approach is to this issue. He said this earlier today at a press conference.
The best way to protect the adults and the children is to ban the product. You cannot regulate 8,000 to 9,000 locations. We do not have enough law enforcement to do so. And they'll continue to sell it, skirting the law.
Okay, the lieutenant governor clearly not happy about what happened with the governor's veto there, but let's talk a little bit more about what else he had to say during this news conference when he was talking to you reporters.
Will, we're in an interesting territory here where the lieutenant governor and the governor are very much at odds over the situation. And It's very interesting because the lieutenant governor says that the governor had told him earlier in the session, I'm going to sign this. I'm going to support this bill. And so the lieutenant governor feels pretty blindsided by this kind of 11th hour action by the governor to veto the bill. And the lieutenant governor did not mince any words. He said today that I view this veto proclamation as the Texas governor saying he supports legalizing recreational marijuana in the Lone Star State. So now we have this special session. The governor wants some kind of regulatory framework, and you have the man who is in charge of the Texas Senate who says, I am not going to sign anything or gavel down anything that has to do with, that's anything less than a ban. So if there are 15 Republican senators in the Senate right now that they have the votes where they say, actually, we agree with the governor, we want to do some regulatory framework, then Dan Patrick has said, I'll let that happen, but I will not be on the dais. I will not be gaveling that down because I do not believe that we should be legalizing recreational marijuana. He says marijuana. We should note out hemp and marijuana under federal law, they are separate. But they do have the same effect, I would say. So that's where he's kind of drawing that parallel. But it should be interesting to see how this will play out because Lieutenant Governor dug his heels in the ground and said, we need to ban these products.
Seems like a showdown is coming on July 21st, which is when this new special session will begin. In the last few moments, Dylan, talk to us though. The governor sets the agenda for a special session. Those are the rules, and including the restrictions on THC. What else might be on that agenda?
There's 5 other bills right now that are up for consideration. Nothing really major. There was something to do with the victims of human trafficking and creating a defense for those people. Those are important as well, but of course, there are things that we know are still top of mind, like bail reform. There were a couple of constitutional amendments like Jocelyn's Law that just failed in the Texas House this year. Could those come back? Lieutenant Governor very much wants those to come back for this special session. And we also asked him about this report out of the White House that Donald Trump, our president, wants Texas to redistrict and redraw its congressional districts, and that's how we determine who's our U.S. House representatives. We asked the Lieutenant Governor about that today because he's been in D.C. Hey, have you had any conversations? And the Lieutenant Governor kind of just smiled and said, if there's any way to get more Republican seats in Texas, I support that fully. So will those be on the special session? We don't know for sure, but we'll have to wait and see.
So much more to follow, but thanks for this update, Dylan. We appreciate it as always.
Can't wait for next month.
It's coming soon. All right.